If everything you've ever learned about American history were wrong, if a forgotten civilization had risen and vanished long before Columbus, and if its buried truth still had the power to reshape the world, would you dare to uncover it? The storm rolled across southern Wisconsin like a living thing, violent, unpredictable, hungry. Lightning cracked over the darkened hills as a young archaeologist, Dr. Eleanor Hayes, pressed her jeep along the muddy road toward the excavation site of Astalon, one of North America's most mysterious pre-Columbian settlements. Eleanor had spent her life studying ancient civilizations, but she had never believed in myths. Not until tonight. Her radio crackled. "Dr. Hayes, you might want to hurry," said the trembling voice of her assistant Mark. We found something. Something big." Eleanor's grip tightened on the wheel. Astalon was famous for its earthen pyramids, wooden palisades, and puzzling cultural fingerprints hinting at connections far beyond the Midwest. Some claimed its people were related to the Mississippians. Others insisted they were migrants from Mesoamerica. For decades, historians debated it. No one agreed. But what Mark had discovered wasn't supposed to exist in North America at all. When Eleanor arrived, the site was nearly swallowed by the storm. Rain hammered the excavation trenches, turning the ground into a slurry of ancient mud and modern boots. Mark rushed up, soaked and pale. "It was inside the northern mound," he said, thrusting a wrapped object into his hands. "We didn't dig it, it fell out after the lightning strike." Eleanor carefully unwrapped the cloth. Inside lay a metal tablet, smooth as polished obsidian, etched with strange symbols, neither Mississippian, nor Mayan, nor any writing system documented in North America. "What language is this?" Mark asked. Eleanor's voice trembled. "It's Phoenician." Mark froze. "But that's impossible. The Phoenicians were ancient seafarers from the Mediterranean, 3,000 years in the past and half a world away." Eleanor turned the tablet under her flashlight. Across the top, in unmistakable archaic script, were the words, "Chronicle of the East Wind Expedition, 1078 BCE. A shiver ran down Eleanor's spine. The date was over 3,000 years old. If genuine, the tablet meant one thing. Mediterranean explorers reached America long before any known civilization. Lightning split the sky again, and the ground beneath their feet shuddered. Eleanor dropped to her knees as the earth trembled. Behind her, the northern mound cracked open further, as if the storm itself were prying the ancient structure apart. Mark pointed. "Look, inside!" A dark, narrow passage appeared, clearly man-made. Eleanor's heart pounded. No one had ever documented a chamber beneath this mound. "Grab the lights," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "We're going in." The passage sloped downward, reinforced with wooden beams far too well preserved for their age. The air was cold, dry, unnaturally so, as if sealed for centuries. Then they reached it. A chamber, circular, silent, perfectly intact. But what froze Eleanor in place was the mural covering the walls. A fleet of long, narrow ships, high-crested prows, sails painted with a crimson sun disk symbol. Mark whispered, "Those look like Phoenician warships." But it wasn't the ships that terrified Eleanor. It was the painted depiction of a giant city. Pyramids taller than any Mississippian mound, massive stone structures, a sprawling temple complex. At the bottom of the mural was a name written phonetically. Zantula, City of the First Dawn. A lost city, unknown to American history, unknown to world history. "Eleanor," Mark said softly, "what if this isn't just a settlement? What if Astalon was an outpost, a colony?" But Eleanor wasn't listening. She was staring at something else, a stone pedestal in the center of the room. On it rested a second artifact, a wooden mask carved with frightening precision. Its eyes were inlaid with gemstones. But the style, Eleanor whispered, African. But from what culture? Carthaginian? Berber? Nubian? You're telling me Africans and Phoenicians and a lost American civilization all cross paths here? Eleanor swallowed hard. I think we've just walked into the single most explosive archaeological discovery in American history. And then the lights went out. Darkness swallowed everything. The storm above ground rumbled like distant artillery. Eleanor felt Mark gripping her arm. Then faintly, she heard it. A whisper. So soft it could have been wind. Except there was no wind. A whisper that seemed to echo inside her mind. Santula must not rise again. Eleanor froze. Mark? Did you hear that? But Mark didn't respond. Mark? She flicked her flashlight on. Mark was gone. Only his dropped headlamp remained, the beam illuminating a fresh set of footprints in the dust, leading deeper into the unexplored tunnel. Eleanor's breath hitched. Those prints were not Mark's. Too large, barefoot, and there were 3 separate sets, all fresh. Something, or someone, was awake inside this chamber. Eleanor backed away slowly, but behind her came another whisper. Daughter of the future, you have opened the path. She turned. The mural was glowing. Not metaphorically, literally glowing, as if illuminated from behind the stone. What she saw next made her blood cold. In the glowing mural, the painted ships were no longer still. The waves beneath them shimmered. The crimson sun disk pulsed. The entire scene looked alive, as if the mural was remembering. And then, a sharp pain behind her eyes. Images exploded in her mind. A vast ocean, stormy and violent. Ships tossed like toys. A fire consuming a great library. A masked priest holding a burning tablet. A city of stone collapsing beneath rising water. Screaming. War. Silence. Eleanor collapsed to the floor, gasping. The mural dimmed. The vision ended. But the terror did not. Because through the fading light, she saw something painted that she hadn't noticed before. A figure, with Eleanor's face. And beneath it, written in the ancient script, the one who returns the sun. Eleanor forced herself to stand. The chamber was silent again, but the footprints in the dust remained. Large, bare, human, fresh. Mark? She called into the tunnel. Only the drip of distant water replied. Her heart hammered, but she took a deep breath. Fear was pointless. Mark was missing. The mural had somehow become alive, and ancient voices were whispering warnings inside her mind. Whatever was happening here, history had never prepared her for it. She grabbed Mark's abandoned headlamp and followed the footprints deeper into the passageway. The air grew colder, older. Dust turned to fine sand beneath her boots, as if she were walking from one world into another. And then she saw it, a faint, golden glow ahead. Eleanor slowed, pressing her hand to the wall for balance. Her fingers touched carvings, delicate spirals, sun symbols, jagged wave patterns. But the style wasn't Mississippian, nor Phoenician, nor African. This was something completely different, something unknown. The tunnel widened, and Eleanor stepped into a cavern so vast it took her breath.
The ceiling stretched impossibly high, supported by colossal stone columns carved with symbols from lost cultures. At the far end, a raised platform ringed with ancient braziers burned with pale, unnatural fire. And in the center of that platform, Mark. He stood perfectly still, staring ahead as if entranced. "Mark!" she called. No movement. Eleanor hurried forward, but something about the light made her stop. The flames cast no shadows, not on the walls, not on the columns, not on Mark. Her stomach tightened. Nothing in nature behaved like this. She stepped onto the platform, and the air vibrated. A low hum, like 1,000 voices murmuring just beneath hearing. The braziers flared brighter. Mark finally turned, but it wasn't the Mark she knew. His pupils were wide, swallowing almost all color from his eyes. His voice was layered, his own mixed with something ancient and resonant. "You should not have come here, Eleanor Hayes." Eleanor froze. Her friend was speaking with two voices. "Mark, what happened to you?" He blinked slowly, or rather, something inside him blinked. "You opened the seal. You returned breath to the Hall of Records." Eleanor's skin prickled. Hall of Records. A myth whispered across ancient cultures, Egyptians, Mayans, mound builders, each telling of a hidden archive containing the true history of the world. Scholars dismissed it as fantasy, and yet here she stood, inside something that looked exactly like the legends. "Mark, listen to me," she said softly. "Fight it, whatever's controlling you." His body stiffened. "We are not controlling him." The second voice thickened, resonant as a drumbeat. Mark's gaze drifted past her toward the braziers. "We are awakening." The flames rose higher, swirling into humanoid shapes, not solid, more like silhouettes burned into smoke. Eleanor stumbled backward. "Who are you?" she demanded. Mark's mouth curved in an eerie half-smile. "We are the echoes of Xantula, the witnesses of the first dawn, and now our city calls to you." The smoke figures began to circle her, whispering in a language she couldn't understand, yet somehow felt older than any written word. Eleanor's breath quickened. This was impossible. A hallucination, a dream. Except every instinct in her body screamed that it was real. "Why me?" she shouted above the whispering. Mark's body shuddered as if the being inside him struggled to hold its form. "Because your blood carries the memory. You are the descendant of the one who fled the fall, the last heir of the sun-bearers." Eleanor shook her head. "My ancestors were farmers from Maine. I'm not—" "You are not what you think." The smoke figures stopped circling. They each raised a hand, pointing toward her chest, and Eleanor felt it. A burning pulse beneath her sternum, not physical, something deeper, something awakening. The pulse spread through her body like a shock wave. Eleanor stumbled, dropping to one knee. Vision slammed into her again. A great city shining under a blazing red sun. Priests in sun masks chanting around a massive stone gate. A woman with Eleanor's same eyes leading children into the mountains as the city burned. A final command whispered across time. "Protect the seal. Never let the city rise again." The visions vanished. Mark's voice, both of them, echoed through the chamber. "The seal lies broken now. You have opened what your ancestor tried to hide." Eleanor forced herself to stand. "What is Xantula?" she shouted. "A city? A civilization? A myth?" The flames roared. "A prison." The word hit her like ice. "A prison for who?" she whispered. Mark's body trembled violently. The voice inside him strained, warping the air with its power. "Not who. What?" A sudden crack split the chamber. Stone shifted beneath her feet. Far below, something massive groaned, like an ancient beast waking from a 1,000-year slumber. Boom! Another crack. The floor trembled. Boom! Sand rained from the ceiling. Eleanor grabbed Mark's arm, but he recoiled as if burned. "Mark, we need to leave!" His voice returned to normal for a brief second. "Eleanor, run!" Then the other voice surged back. "It is too late. The gate begins to open." One of the columns split down the middle, releasing a blast of scorching wind that swept across the platform. Eleanor shielded her face, but through her fingers she saw it. A giant stone door at the far wall was sliding open. Darkness poured from it like smoke. Deep, cold, unearthly darkness. And inside that darkness, something moved. Something huge. Something alive. The stone door slid wider, slow, grinding, ancient. Sand poured from its edges in thin streams, as if time itself were leaking into the chamber. Eleanor staggered backward, her breath shallow and burning. "Mark, move!" she yelled. But Mark was frozen in place, his eyes locked on the widening doorway as if invisible chains bound him. The darkness behind the door thickened into shape, dense, swirling, alive. The camber's cold deepened to something unnatural, something wrong, as if the air were being sucked into a void. The humming returned, deeper, louder, vibrating the stone floor. Eleanor felt it in her bones. Something enormous was behind that door. The silhouette moved again. A limb, a tendril, it was impossible to tell. The darkness shifted like smoke and flesh blended together. Mark's voice trembled with both fear and the other presence inside him. "The guardian wakes!" Eleanor shook her head violently. "A guardian of what? What's in there?" His answer came with a horrible calm. "The city." The word struck like a hammer. Eleanor stared in disbelief at the doorway. A city buried under Wisconsin? Older than the pyramids? Connected to Phoenicians, Africans, and a lost American civilization? The thought was madness. But everything she'd seen tonight was madness. The air around the doorway shimmered, and then a sound. A scraping, dragging echo, as if immense stone structures were shifting far below. Eleanor realized with a chill. The city of Xantula wasn't a myth. It was real, and it was waking up. The thing in the darkness growled. Not an animal growl, not human. A deep, vibrating resonance that rattled her ribs. Eleanor grabbed Mark's arm. "Snap out of it! We're getting out of here, now!" Mark's expression flickered, his real self surfacing for the first time. "Eleanor, it's calling me." "No, don't listen." "I can hear the sun-bearers, the priests, their chants." "Mark, look at me." His eyes finally focused. Eleanor yanked him away from the platform, but the flames in the braziers erupted upward, forming a barrier of fire around the pedestal. Mark was pulled from her grip as if hooked by an invisible force. "No!" Eleanor screamed. Mark was dragged backwards across the stone, toward the open door, his heels scraping uselessly against the floor. Eleanor lunged forward and grabbed Mark's shirt, pulling with everything she had. But the invisible force pulling him was impossibly strong, like a vacuum from another world. Mark's voice cracked. "Eleanor, go! I'm not leaving you! You have to! You're the last!" His sentence broke off as the floor cracked open between them. A fissure ripped across the platform, glowing red-hot. Eleanor jerked back as heat blasted upward, heat that smelled like burning stone. The ground trembled violently. Columns groaned under their own weight. From the darkness beyond the door, the massive shape stepped forward, finally visible, and Eleanor's breath died in her throat. It wasn't a creature. It wasn't a person. It was a machine. A titanic stone construct, shaped like a humanoid, but made of interlocking basalt plates etched with glowing symbols. Its chest bore the crimson sun disk, the same symbol from the mural. The Guardian, a sentinel, built thousands of years ago by the priests of Xantula. Built to contain something, or prevent something from escaping. Its eyes opened, two burning orbs of molten gold. Eleanor stumbled back, her mind spinning. "A golem," she whispered, "an ancient golem." Mark's possessed voice returned, trembling with awe and fear. The guardian of the gate, it wakes for the heir." Eleanor shook her head. "I am not the heir of anything." The guardian turned its glowing eyes toward her, and then it spoke. Its voice wasn't sound, it was a rumble inside her skull. "Blood of the first dawn, the city calls to you." The ground shook harder. Stone fell from the ceiling. Dust filled the air. The guardian raised one massive arm. Eleanor dove aside as a stone slab crashed where she had stood. She scrambled to her feet, coughing violently. Mark was being pulled closer to the guardian's feet, his hands clawing at the stone. "Ellie, run!" Eleanor turned toward the tunnel. The exit was collapsing. Her mind raced. If she abandoned Mark, he would be taken into the depths by whatever force was awakening the city. If she stayed, she might never make it out alive. But leaving him was not an option. Eleanor grabbed a fallen torch and hurled it at the braziers, trying to disrupt the impossible flames. It passed straight through, swallowed by the fire without resistance. The guardian took another thunderous step. The stone shook beneath her feet, and suddenly the entire chamber vibrated like a struck drum. Dust poured from the ceiling. A column cracked and toppled, smashing into the floor with deafening force. The guardian's chest symbol flared red hot, and then Eleanor heard a sound that chilled her to her core. A heartbeat, not hers, not Mark's. A vast, deep heartbeat coming from beneath the stone floor. Thum, thum, thum. Something beneath the chamber was alive, something enormous. The guardian spoke again. "The city of the sun awakens." Mark's eyes went wide in terror. "Eleanor, listen to me. Zentula didn't fall naturally. It wasn't lost. It was buried to keep something inside." Eleanor felt her stomach tighten. "The priests, they sealed away something catastrophic, something the world wasn't meant to—" A violent shock wave cut him off. Mark screamed as he was dragged into the widening fissure. "Ellie, run!" Eleanor dropped to her knees and reached out, but Mark vanished into the darkness. Just gone. The floor slammed shut. Silence. A horrible, ancient silence. Eleanor's shaking hand hovered over the sealed crack. Her best friend, swallowed into the depths by a city older than recorded American history. She trembled, then looked up. The guardian turned its blazing eyes toward her. It took one step forward. Eleanor ran. Eleanor sprinted down the tunnel, her boots slipping on loose sand as the shaking intensified behind her. The guardian's thunderous footsteps echoed like falling boulders. She didn't dare look back. The chamber's collapse roared through the passageway, stone grinding, beams snapping, ancient walls groaning under the weight of 3,000 years of secrets suddenly disturbed. A violent gust of heated air slammed into her back, nearly knocking her off her feet. The thing beneath the mound is waking up, the thought stabbed into her mind like ice. Mark's words echoed. Zentula didn't fall. It was buried to keep something inside. Eleanor ducked as a beam collapsed overhead, crashing into the ground inches from her head. Her lungs burned. Dust filled her throat. She kept running. The tunnel narrowed and slanted upward, the way out. The storm outside rumbled like a warning. A deafening boom exploded behind her. The tunnel heaved upward, throwing her forward onto her hands and knees. Pain shot up her wrists. Then, a grab, a giant cold hand on her ankle. Eleanor gasped and twisted around. A black tendril of liquid shadow snaked toward her from the collapsing darkness, pulsing with unnatural life. "What? No!" The tendril tightened around her ankle, dragging her backward toward the collapsing mound. Her fingernails clawed into the sandy floor, desperate for grip. The guardian's molten gold eyes flashed through the dust behind it, advancing with implacable slowness. Eleanor screamed, kicking wildly. Her heel connected with the tendril. It rippled, like fluid, not flesh, but it loosened. She tore free, scrambling upward just as the tunnel fully collapsed behind her with an earth-shaking finality. A blast of cold night air hit her as she burst out of the mound entrance, just in time to see the entire top of the northern mound sink several feet downward, as if something massive had shifted inside. Lightning tore across the sky. Rain poured down. Wind roared. Eleanor stumbled out into the storm, covered in dust and shaking violently. Behind her, the mound groaned, and a hairline crack opened across its surface, glowing faintly red. Her heart pounded. Something ancient, something sealed away for millennia, was now stirring beneath Wisconsin soil. Eleanor collapsed to her knees, rain soaking her hair, her clothes, her trembling hands. The artifact tablet, the Phoenician tablet, was still inside her jacket pocket. She clutched it instinctively. Mark was gone, pulled into the depths. "The police, I need to call—" She stopped. Her Jeep wasn't alone. 2 black SUVs were parked beside it, unmarked, engine lights still warm. Eleanor's chest tightened. From the shadows, 3 men stepped forward, dressed in black tactical gear, carrying equipment that was definitely not standard government issue. One of them spoke through the rain. "Dr. Eleanor Hayes?" Eleanor froze. "What? Who are you?"
The lead man stepped closer, rain sliding off his dark visor. "We're here because of what you've uncovered." His voice was calm, controlled, too controlled. "We need you to come with us, now." Eleanor shook her head violently. "No, no, you don't understand. Something's waking up down there. Something—" "That is exactly why you're coming." Eleanor backed away instinctively. Don't come any closer." The man raised his hand. "We're not here to hurt you, Dr. Hayes, but we will bring you in." At that moment, the ground trembled beneath all their feet. A deep subterranean rumble rolled through the earth, rising up from the northern mound like the growl of a buried titan. All 3 men turned sharply toward the mound. A column of red light burst upward through its cracked surface. Eleanor stepped back in horror. Lightning struck the ground inches from the SUVs. The lead man swore under his breath. Too late. He turned toward her again. "Dr. Hayes, we must leave. Now. There's no time to explain." Eleanor stared at the mound. Red fissures glowed like volcanic veins beneath the collapsing earth. Her instinct screamed to run, to get away from the men, to flee into the storm. But before she could decide, one of the men pressed a finger to his earpiece. "Sir, she has the tablet. Confirmed." Eleanor's blood froze. They knew about the tablet. The man's tone shifted from controlled to urgent. "Get her inside the vehicle." 2 of the operatives moved toward her with swift, precise steps. "No!" Eleanor turned to run, but the nearest man moved faster, grabbing her arm. She struggled, kicking, clawing. "Let me go!" Thunder cracked overhead. The mound rumbled again, sending a shockwave across the field. The men faltered for a split second, and Eleanor used that moment. She twisted free, slipped in the mud, and sprinted toward the tree line. "Stop her!" 3 flashlights cut through the storm behind her. Eleanor ran blindly, branches slashing her arms, mud splashing her legs. Her breath tore through her lungs. The forest swallowed her. But behind her she heard shouting and engines roaring to life. The men were coming. Eleanor didn't know how long she ran. Minutes? Hours? Adrenaline blurred time into a frantic rush. She burst into a clearing just as the storm began to ease. Lightning still flickered at the horizon, but the rain lightened to a steady patter. Her lungs burned. Her legs trembled. She needed shelter,
anywhere to hide until the men left. Then she saw it. A small, abandoned ranger cabin near the tree line, dark and silent. She sprinted toward it, pushed the warped door open, and slipped inside. Closing the door quietly, she pressed her back against it, gasping. Her mind was a storm. Mark's face as he was dragged down, the Guardian's glowing eyes, the ancient vision of a burning city, the men who somehow knew exactly what she'd found. She clutched the Phoenician tablet with shaking fingers. "What are you?" she whispered to it. The symbols glowed faintly, just for a moment, then faded. Eleanor swallowed hard. The cabin was silent except for the rain on the roof. She sank to the floor, exhausted. And then, a soft knock on the door. A single, gentle tap. Eleanor froze. The knock came again, slow, deliberate. "Eleanor." The voice was familiar. Her blood ran cold. It was Mark's voice. But Mark was gone, dragged below the earth. She backed away from the door. The voice called again, slightly distorted, as if layered with another tone. "Eleanor, open the door, please. It's me." Her heart hammered. She said nothing. The voice grew softer. "Eleanor, the city is rising. You cannot run from this." The doorknob slowly began to turn. The doorknob turned another fraction. Rain slid down the windows in thin silver sheets, lightning casting brief, jagged shadows across the cabin walls. Eleanor's breath hitched. "Mark?" she whispered, though she already knew the truth. The voice outside tried again, soft, almost pleading. "Ellie, don't be afraid. I found a way out." A chill crawled up her spine. That wasn't Mark. Something about the cadence was wrong. Too measured, too calm, like someone wearing his voice as clothing. Eleanor stepped backward until she bumped into the table. The voice outside grew clearer. "We don't have much time. They're coming for both of us. Please, let me in." Lightning cracked overhead. For a split second, through the thin gap under the door, Eleanor saw a shadow, wrongly shaped, too tall, too motionless. Her pulse raced. "Mark?" she whispered again, just to test. "What did you call me when we first met?" A pause. Then, "Eleanor." Her heart dropped. Mark had never called her Eleanor, not once in 8 years of friendship. It was always Ellie, always. She backed silently toward the old wooden dresser and gripped the rusted metal handle. The voice outside continued, but now the tone was colder, flatter, the disguise slipping. "You are delaying the inevitable. Open the door." She remained silent. The doorknob stopped turning. For a moment, everything went still. Then, slam! The door jolted violently, shaking the whole frame. Eleanor gasped. Another slam, harder. Wood splintered. Outside, no voice, just the rhythmic pounding of something strong, something that didn't breathe, something patient. On the third strike, the cabin walls shuddered. Eleanor grabbed the dresser with both hands, dragged it toward the door, and wedged it against the frame. The old wood screeched across the floor. She stumbled back, panting. Outside, the pounding stopped. Silence. Then, a whisper, soft as mist, but inside her mind, not outside the door. "Blood of the first dawn, you cannot hide from your inheritance." Eleanor clamped her hands over her ears, but it didn't stop the voice. It vibrated inside her skull, ancient and cold. The cabin lights flickered, and then went out. Only the storm lit the room now, in violent flashes. Eleanor bit her lip, trying to stay grounded, trying to separate her thoughts from the invading whisper. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the presence vanished. The air cleared. The rain softened. Silence returned. The thing, whatever it was, had left. Or was it waiting? Eleanor's legs buckled and she sank to the floor, shaking from cold and terror. But she had a moment to breathe, and she needed to use it. Her mind raced. The men in black knew about the tablet. The mound was cracking open. Mark was trapped below with something ancient, and something wearing his voice had just tried to lure her out. She wiped her wet face, exhaled shakily, and stood. If she stayed here, she would die. If she ran blindly, she would be caught. There was only one choice. She had to find out what the tablet meant. Eleanor dug into her jacket pocket and pulled it out. The Phoenician tablet. Sand still clung to its surface. The lightning gave it a bone-white glow. The runes flared. Not faintly this time, bright enough that the entire cabin lit in a pale gold hue. The symbols rearranged. Eleanor gasped. In real time, as if responding to her presence, the ancient inscription shifted into English letters, forming a single sentence. When the city breathes again, seek the Voyager. Eleanor stared, heart pounding. The Voyager? She touched the next line, which began to glow violently, and suddenly the room dissolved around her. The floor vanished, the walls melted away. She was falling, not physically, through memory, through time.
The voyage of Haino the navigator. Salt wind, the roar of waves, shouts of sailors speaking Phoenician. Eleanor's vision steadied, and she stood on the deck of a massive oared galley under a blood-red sunset. Bronze helmets glinted. Purple sails snapped in the wind. A man stood at the bow, tall and rugged, with a tattoo of a sun disk on his forearm. His voice boomed, "Mark the skies. The storm follows us again." His accent was unmistakable, ancient Tyrian. Eleanor whispered his name as it surfaced in her mind. Haino. Haino, the navigator. A real historical explorer. A legendary sailor. But what was he doing in the middle of North America? As the ship cut through the waves, Haino gripped a carved stone tablet, the twin of Eleanor's. He held it up to the horizon. Another ship followed behind them, filled with dozens of African navigators, Nubian, Carthaginian, and Berber men, hardened by long ocean voyages. One of Haino's officers approached nervously. "My lord, the sky burns. The omens." "The omens brought us here," Haino replied. His voice was steady, powerful, heavy with purpose. "And they speak of a city that predates the gods." The officer lowered his voice. "The priests say the city must remain buried, that to awaken it—" "They fear what they do not understand," Haino snapped. "But we were chosen to see the truth." Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating a coastline. Green, rolling, unfamiliar. The New World. North America. More than 2,000 years before Columbus. The sailors shouted in awe as land came into view. Land rich with forests, rivers, and distant rises of earth that resembled mounds. Massive, man-made mounds. Haino took a deep breath. "At last," he murmured, "the kingdom of Zontula." The tablet in his hand pulsed, just like Eleanor's. As the ship approached the shore, Eleanor's vision blurred again, and a new voice thundered through the memory. "Witness how it began, heir of the first dawn." The world shattered into white light, and Eleanor was thrown back into her own body inside the dark cabin. She gasped, collapsing to the floor, sweat mixing with rainwater on her skin. The tablet still glowed faintly. She now knew 3 terrifying things.
Phoenicians reached America millennia ago. They came searching for the ancient city of Xantula. Whatever they awakened back then is awakening again now. And she, Eleanor Hayes, was somehow the key. The train rattled deeper into the frontier, slicing through endless plains like a steel arrow. As dawn broke, the first golden light spilled across the horizon, illuminating a land that felt untouched, ancient, quiet in a way that Benjamin uneasy. Inside the rattling wooden carriage, Ada sat upright, her hands folded over her notebook. She had barely slept. Every time she dozed, she saw the face of Captain Wycliffe, the very same man she had seen in a daguerreotype from 1854, appearing unchanged in 1889. Impossible. And yet the miners' testimonies, the Black Hills records, and the strange markings carved into the canyon walls all pointed to something far beyond ordinary history. Benjamin's voice broke her trance. "You're thinking about him again." "No," she lied. "Yes, you are," he replied, "and so am I." Ada closed the notebook. "A man who doesn't age for 35 years. Show me a better explanation. Every lead, every witness, every old diary entry from towns we've never met describes him exactly the same." Benjamin nodded, staring out the window. "But the part that scares me isn't that he's still alive. It's that everyone who went looking for him disappeared." Ada said nothing. She didn't have to. The silence between them already carried every unspoken fear. The frontier town. By mid-morning, the train screeched into the remote settlement of Crow's Landing, little more than a handful of saloons, a telegraph shack, and a single muddy street. But the place felt wrong, too quiet, too still. A middle-aged telegraph operator watched them step off the train with a look of nervous recognition. "You the historians?" he asked. Ada nodded. "You shouldn't have come," he whispered. "He doesn't like being found." Benjamin stiffened. "Who?" The telegrapher swallowed. "Wycliffe." Ada stepped closer. "You've seen him?" "Seen? Ma'am? He was here last week." Ada felt her heartbeat stop. "Last week?" Benjamin repeated. "But he would be 83 years old." The man finished. "Only he ain't. Looks younger than me. And when he stares at you, it's like he's looking right through your bones." "Where did he go?" Ada demanded. The telegrapher raised a trembling hand and pointed west. "To the canyon. To the place the tribes don't speak of. The place even the soldiers won't go." Ada exchanged a look with Benjamin. This was it. The trail was real. But then the man added something that made the air grow cold. He left a message for anyone who would come after him. "A message?" Ada asked. The telegrapher nodded and produced a folded slip of paper. Ada opened it. 7 words, written in a style that hadn't changed since 1854. "Turn back. History does not belong to you." Benjamin exhaled slowly. "Well, that's not ominous at all." But Ada's eyes were bright. "It means we're close." The ride into the unknown. They purchased horses and followed the dusty road westward. Hours passed. The land grew harsher, lonelier, scattered with bleached bones, rusted wagons, and the remnants of old encampments long abandoned. By afternoon, the wind began to carry strange sounds, echoes, whispers that didn't belong to any language they recognized. Benjamin paused his horse. "Did you hear that?" Ada nodded. "Wind," she said, but she didn't believe her own words. They continued. The path narrowed, weaving between cliffs carved high as cathedrals. Symbols, ancient, spiraling, unmistakably non-European, were etched into the stone. Some glowed faintly under the sun. Ada ran her fingers over one carving. "This is older than anything recorded in U.S. history," she whispered. Benjamin pointed to another marking, 3 concentric circles intersected by jagged lines. "It's the same symbol from Wycliffe's journal, the one dated 1854. Ada felt her pulse rise. "We're walking into the exact place he described, but that was 35 years ago. And the drawings haven't faded at all." Ada mounted again. "Let's keep going." They rode deeper until the canyon walls opened into a wide basin, a place untouched by human hands except for one thing: a wooden cabin, old, weathered, and yet the lantern on the porch burned as if it had been lit only hours ago. Benjamin tightened his grip on his revolver. No footprints, no wagon tracks, nothing. Ada swallowed. "He's here." The cabin door creaked open. A man stepped out, his hair dark, his posture straight, his coat the style of an officer long gone from modern uniforms, and his eyes, cold, sharp, impossibly aware. Captain Nathaniel Wycliffe, exactly as he had looked in the photographs from 3 decades earlier. He stared at them for a long moment, expression unreadable, then spoke softly. "You should not have followed the trail. You're supposed to be dead."
Wycliffe smiled faintly. "Supposed to be. But history is rarely what people think it is." Ada stepped forward. "How are you still alive? What happened in these canyons in 1854? Wycliffe looked past them to the cliffs, as if listening to something ancient. "You came for answers, but every answer you seek comes with a price." Ada held her ground. "Then we'll pay it." Wycliffe studied her for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then he nodded once. "Very well," he said quietly. "Then I will tell you the truth about the expedition that never made it into history books, the soldiers who vanished, the thing we found beneath the earth, and the night the United States government swore to bury it forever." He stepped back inside the cabin. Ada and Benjamin exchanged a final look, half fear, half hunger for the truth. Then they followed him inside. The cabin smelled of old wood, leather, and something else, metallic, like iron left to rust in the rain. A single oil lamp flickered on the table, illuminating a wall covered in maps, sketches, and newspaper clippings spanning decades. Wycliffe gestured toward a chair. "Sit, quickly. There isn't much time." Ada and Benjamin obeyed, tension twisting their stomachs into knots. Wycliffe moved toward the wall, tracing his finger over the maps. He stopped at one marked with faded ink and circles. "This," he said, "is where it all began." Benjamin leaned closer. "That canyon, where the telegrapher sent us. You've been hiding here for how long?" "Longer than you'd believe," Wycliffe replied, his voice carrying the weight of decades. "I've been tied to this place since 1854, the day we discovered the chamber beneath the Black Hills. What we found should never have been unearthed." Ada frowned. "A chamber? Under the canyon?" Wycliffe nodded gravely. "And it wasn't natural. The mounds, the formations, they're not from any civilization known to man. They predate the Americas, predating the Phoenicians, the Romans, possibly even the Egyptians. What we found is older than recorded history itself." Benjamin swallowed hard. "Older than history? That's impossible." Wycliffe's eyes flared with a strange intensity. "History is what people record. What is buried, what is forgotten, becomes legend. And the thing beneath the earth doesn't care about legend." Ada leaned forward. "The thing? You mean alive?" Wycliffe's gaze darkened. "Yes, alive,
aware and ancient, a guardian, or perhaps something more, something that existed before humans ever walked these lands. Benjamin's hand trembled. You're talking about a creature? Wycliffe shook his head slowly. Not a creature. A civilization's mechanism. Something created to protect or to imprison. And it's been waiting for someone like me. And now, you. Ada's eyes widened. Wait, me? Wycliffe held up his hand. The tablet you carry, the lineage you come from, you are tied to it more than you realize. You have blood that traces back to the earliest explorers who attempted to seal it. You are the key. Ada swallowed. Her pulse raced. A key to what? The city beneath the hills, Zantula, the city of the first dawn, buried by the ancestors of the tribes to prevent something from escaping, something that could change the world if freed. Benjamin shivered. Why hasn't anyone ever recorded this? Because those who did disappeared. The soldiers, the miners, the explorers, they vanished without trace. Only the tablets, carvings, and whispers remained. And now the city awakens again. The mounds tremble because the seal is weakening. The guardian stirs, and your bloodline, Ada, will decide what happens next. Ada's chest tightened. She looked down at the tablet in her hands. Its carvings pulsed faintly, almost alive. So this is why the men in black were after me. Wycliffe nodded grimly. Exactly. They're government agents, or what's left of a secret branch that has known about Zantula for generations. Their mission is containment, not discovery. And now that the seal is compromised, they'll stop at nothing. Benjamin glanced at Wycliffe, tension in his jaw. So what do? We run? Wycliffe shook his head. Running isn't an option. The city calls. The guardian will not allow the seal to remain broken for long. You must go to it, face it, and perhaps, if the legends are true, you may be able to finish what our ancestors started. Ada's breath caught in her throat. You mean enter the city? Descend into the mounds? Wycliffe's expression was grim. Yes, and beware, history is not the only thing that watches from below. Lightning flashed through the cabin window, illuminating the maps and carvings in stark relief. Shadows danced on the walls, twisted and alive. For a moment, Ada could swear she saw figures etched into the maps, flickering like ghosts, moving toward her. A low rumble began beneath the cabin. The earth shifted. Wycliffe's eyes went dark. It begins. There's no turning back now. The lamp flickered violently, then went out. Total darkness swallowed the cabin. Rain pelted the roof like 1,000 fists. From the silence, a faint whisper emerged. Not human, not natural. The air awakens. Ada's pulse surged. Benjamin gripped her arm. Wycliffe moved to the door. Follow me, he said, through the canyon, to the entrance of the city. Step carefully. History itself is watching. And with that, the trio stepped into the storm, toward the darkness of the Black Hills, toward a secret older than the Americas themselves, toward Zantula.
The rain-soaked canyon stretched before them, cliffs towering like jagged sentinels. Lightning etched the sky with violent brilliance, illuminating the path that led deeper into the heart of the Black Hills. Wycliffe led, with Benjamin and Ada close behind, their boots sinking into wet soil, hearts hammering in unison. The path narrowed. Symbols like those carved into Ada's tablet now appeared on the canyon walls themselves. Spirals and sun disks, concentric circles intersected by jagged lines, glowing faintly even under the storm. Ada reached out to touch one, and a pulse ran up her arm, a cold shock that made her gasp. They're reacting to the tablet,
she whispered. Benjamin's eyes widened. Like a key? Wycliffe nodded gravely. Exactly. Only the blood of the air can awaken the path fully. The city has been waiting for you, Ada. At the canyon floor, the ground suddenly shifted beneath them. A low rumble traveled through the earth like a distant heartbeat. Stay close, Wycliffe ordered. This is only the beginning. The hidden entrance. They reached a jagged cliff face where the canyon walls converged. Here, partially hidden by centuries of rockfall, was a narrow crevice. Wycliffe knelt, brushing away the mud and vines. Beneath the overgrowth, intricate carvings formed a pattern identical to the tablet Ada carried. This is it, Wycliffe said, the entrance to Xantula. Ada's hand trembled as she pressed the tablet against the carved pattern. Light surged, searing her palm. The rock shifted and groaned, sliding aside to reveal a narrow, descending tunnel illuminated by an eerie golden glow. Benjamin stepped forward. "It's alive," he muttered. The walls themselves seemed to pulse, faint symbols moving as if breathing. Wycliffe looked at Ada. The city is not simply a place, it's a mechanism, a guardian, and it knows you are here. The descent. They entered the tunnel. The air was heavy, filled with a strange metallic tang. The walls pulsed faintly as if the stone itself were alive. Ada could hear whispers, soft voices speaking in languages she could not recognize. They echoed in her mind, not her ears. "Stay focused," Wycliffe warned. "These tunnels test the mind. The guardian of the city reacts to doubt and fear." A few steps in, a low growl rolled through the tunnel. The ground beneath their feet trembled. Benjamin reached for his revolver, but Wycliffe shook his head. "No weapon will save you here, only your resolve and the blood you carry." Suddenly, a stone slab slid aside further down the tunnel, revealing a massive chamber. At its center, a pedestal held a golden disc etched with intricate sun symbols. Around it, statues of humanoid figures with masks of gemstones stared down with empty eyes. The golden disc pulsed, each pulse echoing like a heartbeat, synchronized with the low rumble in the tunnel. Ada's breath caught. "It's enormous, and it's waiting for me." Wycliffe placed a hand on her shoulder. "Step carefully. The guardian watches. Every move you make matters." The guardian awakens. As they approached the pedestal, the air thickened. The rumble grew into a roar. From the shadows, a massive figure emerged. Stone plates clicked together, forming a humanoid shape towering above them. Its eyes burned with molten gold. "The guardian," Wycliffe whispered. "It awakens only for the air." The guardian's gaze locked on Ada. Its voice wasn't sound, but a deep resonance in her mind. "Blood of the first dawn, you have come." Ada's pulse raced. She could feel the city itself responding to her presence. The tablet pulsed in her hands, glowing brighter with each heartbeat. The guardian moved closer. Each step shook the chamber. Dust and stone rained down. Benjamin grabbed Ada's arm. "Be careful," he shouted over the roar. Ada stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her chest. "I am here to fulfill what my ancestors began. I will not fail." The guardian paused, and for a long moment the chamber was silent, except for the faint heartbeat of the city. Then, with a deep groan that shook the very stone, the golden disc on the pedestal lifted, emitting a radiant light that filled the chamber. The statues seemed to move, leaning toward Ada, as if acknowledging her presence. Wycliffe whispered, "You are the key, Ada. The city waits for your choice. Choose wisely, or it will choose for you."